What if everything you believed about the food pyramid was crafted not for health, but for profit? Peel back the layers and you'll uncover a scheme larger and more scandalous than you could have imagined. Hold on to your beliefs, they're about to be shattered. 1980. Disco balls, mullets, and the arrival of a so-called nutrition masterpiece, the food pyramid.
We're onto something big here, and it affects all of you. It's the food pyramid, which turns out is a pyramid scheme.
The government claimed it was the golden ticket to health, but one couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. At its broad, sturdy base, an audacious directive to gobble up 6 to 11 servings of grains daily. Let that sink in. Are they seriously suggesting that knocking back up to 11 slices of bread or demolishing almost an entire box of sugar-laden cereal is the secret to wellness? It's laughable. Meanwhile, the wholesome fruits, the rich meats, and the vast array of vegetables got the short end of the stick, reduced to mere afterthoughts. The once colorful spectrum of nutrition was now overshadowed by a tsunami of grains. One has to wonder, what were they thinking?
Like, man, you need nutrients to live and grow.
If grains were the hero of this tale, then fruits, meats, and veggies were the unsung supporting characters buried in the credits. And if you think about it, isn't it convenient? An abundance of cheap grains, a recommendation to consume more, one might suspect someone's pockets were getting heavier. Dare to question the pyramid though? Oh, you'd be labeled a rebel, a non-believer. But let's be honest, there's more to this grainy narrative than meets the eye.
Food gets everybody together.
When the pyramid made its grand entrance in 1980, it came with a silent promise, the foundation of a healthier nation. And yet, let's peek at the numbers, shall we? In the dreamy days before this pyramid's reign, during the 60s and 70s, obesity remained more or less a bystander in America's health scene. The prevalence was consistent, not stirring much concern. But oh, how the tables turned post-1980. Can it be mere coincidence that soon after embracing this grain-heavy guide, obesity rates began to climb? From a relatively modest 13.4% in 1980, it spiraled up to a staggering 34.3% by 2008. Now, I'm not saying the pyramid was the sole culprit, but if you were a detective, wouldn't these numbers make you raise an eyebrow? It seems like the grains weren't the only things rising. One has to wonder, was this pyramid pointing us toward better health or leading us astray?
Flip the damn food pyramid!
It's the food pyramid.
And that green stuff is a scam. It's a pyramid.
In the same timeline as the food pyramid, another global crisis was taking place. Almost every nook and cranny on our globe, from Asia's monsooned rice fields to Canada's frostbitten wheatlands, was feeling the pinch. Asia, usually flowing with rice, was down due to relentless monsoons. Canada, a proud wheat producer, hit a 10-year low. But the biggest slap was to our cold rivals, the Soviets. Mother Russia, grappling with a double whammy of rotten luck and even more rotten central planning, was eyeing mass starvation and the potential wrath of a hungry population. Desperation forced them to come, cap in hand, to the US. And America, sensing both an opportunity and a humanitarian duty, decided to cash in on this grain jackpot. Thanks to the global grain grief, prices were soaring. The deal America brokered? It wasn't just historic. It was the kind of deal that gets whispered about in hushed corridors of power, going down as one of the biggest grain trades in history. Ka-ching! This is where Earl Rusty Butz comes in. This guy wasn't just a paper pusher. He was the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture under none other than President Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon?
Richard Nixon.
It's Richard Nixon, our greatest president.
And with Nixon eyeing another term in the Oval Office, old Rusty needed to pull some strings. Political Playbook 101. If you can win over the nation's farmers, those rugged folks who till the land from dawn till dusk, you've got a ticket to power. The grain market at that time? Tighter than an 80s leotard. Think production limits and regulations that harken back to the Great Depression. But Rusty had a vision. He flung open the gates of regulation and told farmers, "Grow, baby, grow!" Plus, for every grain they sold to the Soviets, a nice chunk of change from the US coffers sweetened the deal. But Rusty wasn't just about growing grain, he was about growing power. His mantra? Get big or get out. And thus the birth of the agribusiness tycoons. With farmers turned tycoons rallying behind Nixon, the re-election was in the bag. But as with every party, the music eventually stops. When the global grain shortage dried up and the Soviets had their fill, America sat atop a mountain of grain with no buyers in sight. The golden era seemed to be flickering out. So what next? What do you do when you're knee-deep in corn and wheat with nobody hungry enough to buy? Did this situation make the government manipulate us to eat bread till we drop? A big fat yes. The pyramid we've all come to know, it's not the original one. When the USDA decided to create a diet plan for us, for whatever reason, they hired Louise Light, a remarkable nutritionist. She presented a radically different food guide, almost unrecognizable from the carb-heavy spectacle of the 1980s. She envisioned a world where fruits and veggies aren't just that sad side dish, but the main event, where proteins aren't the villains, and where fats aren't just allowed but encouraged. And sugars? Well, they had to wait in the corner. Louise's vision wasn't about appeasing industries or filling pockets. It was a blueprint for health, pure and simple. But America, having brokered that massive grain deal with the Soviets, found itself sitting on an economic goldmine. With grain prices soaring and a commitment to deliver vast quantities, there was a sudden imperative to make grains the center of our plates. But how do you convince a nation to chow down on more bread and cereals? Enter the media. In the age of catchy jingles and eye-catching ads, big food corporations didn't just produce food, they crafted narratives.
And the food pyramid will help you find the right balance. Every color, every day.
The push to consume more grains was now not just an economic imperative. It was wrapped up in the cloak of health, made appealing by heartwarming commercials of happy families pouring those healthy, sugary cereals. Magazines praising the vitality boost from grain-heavy meals, and talk shows discussing the benefits of the modern food pyramid. It wasn't just about information, it was about influence. The grain-centric message was straightforward and consistent. Eat more grains, live a healthier life. With a media blitz, what was initially a geopolitical and economic move seamlessly transformed into dietary advice. And so the distorted message began to feel like common sense. But beneath this, a more complex narrative played out. A dance between media, big food giants, and international politics. Their collective aim? To ensure the revised food pyramid was embraced as gospel, despite the shadowy truths lurking behind it. And in this tangled web, Louise Light's scientifically sound vision was obscured, eclipsed by a media juggernaut powered by deeper pockets and larger ambitions. After witnessing how media narratives swayed the masses, you'd think we've seen the end of the maze. But hang on, there's another twist. You see, the media was merely a stage, and behind the curtain, a cast with vested interests. From the 11 members entrusted with the nation's nutritional guidelines, 6 had their pockets warmed by the food industry. So, was the food pyramid a genuine health guide, or just an advertisement in disguise? It becomes clear. The pyramid was less about leading us to the pinnacle of health and more about directing us to the cash registers of big food companies. In essence, it was a beautifully crafted illusion, with the media playing the role of the grand illusionist.
But it's more than treats. Hey, look at mama, I watch what I eat. Give me 5 food.
Louise Light's vision was a testament to genuine health intentions, not driven by industry wallets. Today, as we're dazzled by food innovations like lab-grown meats and artificial meals, we're eerily reminded of past missteps. Are we on the brink of another nutritional faux pas? As the siren calls of modern food trends beckon, it's crucial we dig deep and distinguish between true nutrition and mere industry hype.